Greetings and willkommen. I'm Catherine of Sky, and I know the title sounds a bit hype, but it's actually really true. It's not clickbait, and we are going to tell you 5 lies that Americans tell themselves and the rest of the world. So this video came about because I see and meet a lot of young people just as I'm going to the market, whatever. I talk to people a lot, people in stores, shopkeepers, that kind of thing. And especially a lot of the young people are like, oh, I want to move to America. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because it's so much better and it's so this and so that. And some of these are native Swedes. Some of them are refugees from other countries. But I think all of these people who are really keen on America are probably that way because they don't realize the awesome benefits we have in Sweden. And they get, well, we're going to talk about that. How is this information coming to them? Well, America likes to brainwash its citizenry, and they do that through the news, popular media like Hollywood. And if you're an American watching this, you're going to think, what are you talking about? We're not brainwashed. We're fine. No, when you step out of America, you realize how much is told to you that doesn't make sense and that is actually false. So let's start on our list about the lies Americans tell themselves and the rest of the world. The first thing is that only America has perfect freedom. They're the only free country in the world. Nobody else has freedom. Everybody else is like some sort of slave or subject of a monarchy or a dictatorship or something. I can tell you that every country in the EU has freedom. Many countries around the world have freedom. People are allowed to vote for their leaders, vote for laws, all kinds of other things, just like, well, sometimes an even better than in America, because in most other places, there are more political parties than just 2. There's a lot more granularity in terms of like what you can vote for. Maybe you like environmental initiatives more than you care about, say, social initiatives. So there's a Green Party. Maybe you prefer, programs that deal with people. Maybe you care about, making sure the elderly have food and clothing and are taken care of by the government. There are parties for that too. Maybe you're more conservative. There are parties for many different aspects of life. And so I would argue that America having only 2 parties is one of the least free countries there is. There are also other things that I have run into that are just horrible. Like when I lived in the US, a hospital mistreated me very badly, and I wasn't allowed to say anything about it. I couldn't go on YouTube. I consulted a lawyer on this, by the way. Because the hospital wouldn't work with me. The lawyer also refused to take the case as like going forward with it, because they're like, well, it's going to cost too much, and unless you're disabled or dead, you're not going to get any money. Okay, so I felt like my freedoms were definitely being trampled. I was injured very badly because of what a certain doctor did, but I was not allowed to even go on social media and say so because, and you can see I'm being very vague. I don't want to get myself in trouble because, well, that's defamation. That's against the law. And it's like, well, what if it's true? If it's true, no, that's still defamation. They can sue you for defamation, even if it's true. And it's like, that is not freedom. That's like muzzling people. And I've run into many other situations that are kind of similar to that, that are just unbelievable. I don't know if I should even talk about this. Maybe I'll talk about one of them in another video because it was absolutely outrageous. But yeah, Americans have this idea that they are the most free. And a lot of that comes from like television and stuff like that, where it's like constantly, beaten into people. Oh yeah, we're the most free. We're the this and that. And it's just simply not true. All right, on to number 2. Americans believe they have the best medical care in the world. And first of all, let's just take that point. It's not. It's not the best medical care in the world. And a lot of times you are extremely limited by what your insurance company will pay for. Now, we'll get to payments in just a second. That's a second topic on this one. But like I was told with treatment for my migraines, so I had, MRIs, I had, and I was forced to try many different remedies before they would pay for a different medication, which happened to be very expensive. But I had tried drugs in those categories before and they didn't work. So they needed proof that I tried them. But I tried them when I was a young person, when I had migraines when I was around 16 years old. And so I didn't have those medical records. But no, they needed proof now. So I had to go through the whole thing of trying them and going through these awful side effects before they would actually prescribe a pill that was in a new drug category that actually ended up working a little bit. So and sometimes, surgeries are denied. Some things are said, oh, well, that's optional surgery, when it's like, no, So it just depends. It depends on your insurance, how much you're paying for insurance. So the insurance, which is a bunch of paper pushers, they're not doctors. They don't know what's best, and yet they are free to deny your claims, which is really sad. It's a really sad thing. So I would argue that America has much worse medical care in many cases. Now, I'm not talking about discoveries in medical care. There have been a lot of doctors and researchers who've discovered some really great treatments in the U.S. And indeed, there is good medical care if your insurance will pay for it, or if you're a millionaire and you can afford it. I mean, that's the other option, right? So, but their idea that it's the best in the world is an outright lie. I have not tried medical care in all countries in the world, but I have been to Germany, I have been to Norway and Sweden with medical care specifically. I also used to live in Singapore, and I experienced their medical care as well. Theirs is excellent. And I'll tell you about Sweden. So, for example, in the U.S., I needed foot care for my wounds on my feet. They wanted me to come 4 times a month, but after insurance, my cost was $400 per visit. $1,600 a month is a mortgage. Who can afford to pay for that? And that, like I said, I had good insurance, but it was a specialty clinic, specialty care visit. Here, they asked me to come twice a week. Okay, so 8 visits a month, not 4, and it costs about $20 a visit. And after you rack up a certain amount of money, it's absolutely free. Okay, it's absolutely free because we pay it with our taxes. And the medical care itself, not only was the frequency better and my wounds actually started to heal. I mean, in the U.S., I had wounds and they just weren't healing. But here, seeing a nurse twice a week, they actually were, because in America, all they would do was, for this $400, just keep that in mind, they would get out a paper ruler and measure the thing, and then they would take a photograph, and then the doctor would, trim off the side of the wound and put a bandage on it and call it a day. I saw her for probably less than 10 minutes on my visits. Here, my nurse spends an hour dealing with my feet. She cleans them properly. She trims them. She takes a lot of care in figuring out what kind of bandage is best. I've never had honey in the United States. There's medical honey that they can put on wounds, which has actually done wonders for me. And in the same vein, I've been to the GP and I've been to the neurologist for my migraines, and they have completely different solutions. They have stuff that my doctors in the U.S. never even offered me, because I was seeing a neurologist in the U.S. as well. And I mean, that pill that costs so much, that was his last ditch effort. He was just like, well, if this doesn't work, there's nothing else. And it's like, wow, okay. But here, there's several different things they've offered me. So I feel like the U.S. is behind the times in many ways, and they don't offer medications. I don't know if it's because the insurance wouldn't pay or what. That wasn't explained to me, because I'm sure they must have access to these drugs, but they're probably just prohibitively expensive, or you have to go through all of these hoops, which makes it almost even not worth it. So, yeah, that is a big, big lie that I know Americans are really proud. Oh, yeah, we got the best medical care. But if you look at, I've read several articles about this. If you look, you see that Americans pay I think, the most in the world for medical care, but their expected life expectancy is near the bottom of the list. That's scary. Like, it's really scary, and it's like at least a decade behind other countries who have a higher life expectancy. So yeah, that's number 2 for you. Well, and the other lie that America says is that, well, any country who has universal health care is communist. And of course, communism, that word is an evil word from the 1950s that most Americans are still scared of. They're just like living in Cold War land in their head. But the truth is, it's not communist. It is a service that we pay for, just like schools and roads and fire departments. Do you really want to call the fire department and they're going to be, well, we can't come to your house until you pay the bill, dude. Give me your credit card. We charge $2,000 a visit, or else your house burns down. Is that reasonable? I don't think so. Is it communist to have firefighters in schools paid for by your taxes? No. That's just dumb thinking. Out of all the Western countries, the United States of America is the only one that does not have universal health care. It is a Western, very rich country, wealthy country, and it doesn't have basic universal health care like every other westernized country does. That should tell you something, how far behind and backward America is in terms of healthcare. And I hate that they spread the lie that, oh my God, it's so much more expensive. No, it's not. If you look at these articles, you can find them everywhere online. Americans pay more than twice what everybody else is paying. Everybody else is paying with their taxes. But Americans have to pay insurance costs. They also have to pay prescription fees, copays for prescriptions, copays for doctors, and all kinds of other stuff. And that gets expensive. It's very, very expensive. In Norway and in Sweden, actually, there's a thing called the frikort, where if you pay a certain amount of money per year, it's around, I don't know, 270 to 300 US dollars. After you exceed that amount, everything else is free. Literally everything is free. I had foot surgery for free because I pay it with my taxes. And it's a different way of thinking. It's because we're all human. All of us are going to have an accident in our lives. All of us are going to have some issue where we need help. So we kind of take care of each other. And that's what healthcare is in Europe and how it should be in America, because it just makes life simpler. You have no stress paying for bills related to medical care. Like, I remember, and I've told this story in another video, where I had emergency surgery. I had an appendectomy, not preventable, not foreseeable. Can't prevent your appendix from going critical, right? And I got sent a bill for $110,000. Can you imagine that? It's crazy. US dollars, $110,000. So it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. And you can not even imagine trying to heal and have that stress on you. So when you have that kind of stress, it releases cortisol into your system, and that prevents healing. So it's bad all around. The third item on our list is that Hollywood equals reality. And I think this is where a lot of the young people get their ideas about America from. They see sitcoms, shows, movies, and they think, oh my God, America's so great. And for example, so if you take a show from the 80s, and sorry, I don't have a more recent example, but just imagine this. You have a TV show about blue-collar workers. I think they were factory workers in Roseanne. They live in this huge house. Like, they have a grand kitchen, bigger than I've ever seen in my life, like in real life, in anybody's home. They have a huge living room. They have multiple bedrooms upstairs. They have all kinds of, like, a guest room downstairs and many bathrooms and all kinds of, like, if you watch, I remember that one day when I was a kid. I was like, wow, those people's houses are huge. But that's not reality. And I think a lot of people look at that like, oh my gosh, everybody has a fabulous swimming pool. Everybody has all these bedrooms. Everybody has a huge kitchen. Everybody's got like all of these masses of food and just fancy cars, all of that kind of thing. But that's a lie. And America keeps on pushing that lie. They never have anything real in Hollywood. It's all glitz and glam, and maybe that's what people like. They want to escape. But other people, they look at that as reality. A lot of people in other countries, especially, oh wow, that's how they live in America. Oh boy, that's nice. I have found that in America, when you compare to real estate, say in Sweden, for example, I haven't really looked in a lot of other countries, but the housing prices are similar. If you can only afford a 1-bedroom apartment in Sweden, you can only afford a 1-bedroom apartment in America, especially if you're going to want to have in a city, that kind of thing. As in the United States, if you buy a home in the country, it's going to be cheaper. Same thing in Sweden. But yeah, it's a huge lie that I'm not sure that they. I think it's probably started as an escapism thing, but when people see these shows from overseas, they think, oh, that's reality, So anyway, the next one, number 4, that America is the land of opportunity, and that's not the lie. I think there is a lot of opportunity in America, but the lie is that it's better than anywhere else. Like, it's the only place where you can do, you can live your American, well, maybe living the American dream, sure. Like, you can't really live the American dream in Sweden. That's a very odd idea. But I'm living the Swedish dream. No, but it's an idea of, that's the only place where you can succeed, where you could be an entrepreneur, where you can work hard and get ahead. But I haven't found that to be the case at all. I mean, I think in Sweden, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I'm here. I'm living here, making my life work, doing the best I can. And I think, I've seen all kinds of other people doing exactly the same thing. I mean, you look at, for example, Britain. Britain has a lot of TV shows, like Dragon's Den, for example. Are those people lacking in opportunity? They can't buy craft supplies or industrial parts, or they have no opportunity to make inventions? No, that's the whole point of Dragon's Den, is you have these businesses that are coming up, that are flourishing. They have different products, different business ideas. And so I really don't like that America in general has this sort of like sense of entitlement. And I think that's definitely down to the government trying to like push that idea. America is the best. It's the only place to be, right? And that leads us to number 5. America is the best. That is such a lie. People ask me, like these young people ask me, why did you move to Sweden? I'm like, because I can't stay in America. It's horrible. It's like this politics is so screwed up. The laws are so screwed up. And I don't know if they don't watch the news or anything, but like the freedoms are so restricted in America. For example, a woman's right to choose what is done with her body. That is a sacred right that all people should have, that they decide what happens to their body. I find it outrageous that you can outlaw what you can do with your own body. How? And this is supposedly a free country, right? Free? Really? So a lot of people just don't understand why I'm here. And I tried to explain, well, the healthcare is much better. The laws seem to actually fit people rather than benefiting corporations. And so, and I also just try to tell them, a lot of the things that I'm telling you right now. Again, with number 5, English is the best language, which of course that is just ridiculous. And a lot of them are shocked if they go to a place and people don't speak English. The entitled will demand people speak English because that's what else would they speak, right? But they don't really understand that while we are lucky that English is spoken in much of Europe, it is not the default, right? It's a privilege to be part of a language group that is shared around the world pretty much universally. except for maybe in China, they don't speak a lot of English, and other parts too. But in most of the Western part of the world, English is quite widely spoken, and I feel grateful for that. And I'm also learning the languages of where I live. I'm learning Swedish and a little bit of Norwegian as well. So there is this a little bit of entitlement there. It's like, well, everybody should speak English. US dollars is the only currency. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of these in like where you have those funny things from Reddit, like, things that dumb Americans say. I don't know what Australian dollars are. American dollars are the only one. Australian dollars are fake. I saw one yesterday where they were talking about you can't print your own money. And it's like, dude, hello? And, very similar. Being American is the best nationality to be. American brands are all better. And also American people are somehow better and more worthy than other people. Nobody can even compete with an American. And the craziest thing is, too, that they're very hypocritical because they're, oh, yes, we're so kind and we have tolerance toward all kinds of groups of people. But then you see that basically America goes through hate for one group or another, basically the group of the season. But we see this pattern happening. First it was, black people in America. And then after America tried to shift from that, then it was the hippies. They hated the hippies. Then they hated gay people. Now they hate trans people. And it's not every American. I want to be clear. It's not every American, but it does seem like a lot of Americans tend to flock together. And whether it's because of their religious convictions or just stubborn-headedness, they just can't accept differences in people. And I find that really hypocritical because a lot of them, oh, yes, we open our hearts to you. And it's like, really? You say this with one breath and then hate somebody in the next? So I really wish that more Americans would intelligently travel. Sorry, I'm not sicking them on you. Oh, God. And do keep in mind, this does not apply to all Americans. I have met many intelligent, worldly Americans in my life, but there are a lot of others who are completely intolerant, very ignorant. Some of those people are trolls. Some of those people want to be ignorant, and a lot of them can't help it. Some of them are very eager to learn and very eager to figure out the world. They just haven't had the chance because a lot of Americans just don't travel. So I hope you will approach Americans with kindness. Most of them are going to be friendly and nice. But yeah, these are the lies that Americans have told the rest of the world, and they believe them themselves, which is the worst kind of lie, I think, because it doesn't do them any favors. So thank you so very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.
Vamos,